Hey everyone, welcome. Today, we're diving into something huge happening in India, a landmark public health initiative that's all about stopping a really devastating cancer right in its tracks, before it even has a chance to start.
And it all really boils down to this one simple but incredibly powerful question. What if one of the world's major cancers was almost entirely preventable?
Okay, look at this number, 85,000. That's roughly how many women in India lose their lives to cervical cancer every single year. It's just a staggering, heartbreaking loss of life, especially when you realize the craziest part, it's almost entirely preventable. So, to really wrap our heads around this, we're going to break it down into 5 parts. First, we'll get a sense of the scale of the crisis in India. Then, we'll get into the science, the virus and the vaccine. After that, we'll look at the massive nationwide drive itself, how the plan actually works on the ground. And finally, we'll connect all the dots on why this is such a big deal.
All right, let's start with Section 1 and really try to grasp the sheer scale of India's cervical cancer problem. To put this into perspective for you, India, just one country, accounts for about 1/5 of the world's entire burden of cervical cancer. Think about that. That is a huge, disproportionate weight to carry. And it's exactly why a big national solution wasn't just a good idea, it was an absolute necessity.
And this context is just so important. With the second largest female population on the entire planet, any health issue gets magnified. But so does the potential impact of a successful solution. The sheer number of people makes prevention, not just treatment, completely and utterly vital.
So, what's really behind this crisis? Well, in this next section, we're going to look at the virus that causes the cancer and the scientific shield that's been developed to stop it.
Okay, the main culprit here is something called the human papillomavirus, or HPV. Now, what's crucial to understand is that this virus is incredibly common. Most people are actually exposed to it at some point in their lives. The problem comes from specific high-risk strains that are the direct cause of pretty much every single case of cervical cancer. So that's the target.
So how does this all work? Well, it starts with an infection. For most people, their body's immune system just clears it out, no problem. But sometimes, these high-risk strains stick around. They cause what's called a persistent infection. And over a really long time, we're talking years, even decades, that infection can cause cells to turn cancerous. Now that long timeline, that's actually good news because it gives us a huge window to step in and do something about it.
And this is where the solution comes in. The HPV vaccine isn't a treatment for cancer. It's designed to prevent it from ever getting started. It basically just trains your immune system to recognize and fight off those high-risk HPV strains before they can set up shop and cause a persistent infection. It's like a proactive shield, really.
Okay, so now we get the problem and we have the tool to fix it. So let's turn to Section 3, India's incredibly ambitious response.
This is the big headline, right here. The Indian government has officially launched a massive nationwide HPV vaccination drive. And this isn't just another program. It's a major shift in public health policy, putting large-scale cancer prevention front and center.
Now, this didn't just happen overnight. It was a really careful, strategic process. It all started with a key recommendation from India's top scientific advisory group on immunization. That was followed by a huge breakthrough, the development of a homegrown, made-in-India vaccine. And finally, that all culminated in the launch, integrating this vaccine into the country's universal immunization program.
So what does a monumental effort like this actually look like on the ground? Let's dive into the logistics here in Section 4.
The program has a laser focus. It's all about girls between the ages of 9 and 14. Why that age group? Well, it's because the vaccine is most effective when it's given before any potential exposure to the virus. That makes this age range the perfect window for providing maximum lifelong protection.
So how in the world do you reach millions of girls spread across such a vast and diverse country? The plan is actually a really smart, two-pronged approach. The main strategy is to use the school system, which is a super efficient way to reach the largest number of girls. But to make sure no one gets left behind, there's a parallel effort that will run through community health centers to reach girls who aren't in school.
Now, one of the key things that makes this entire initiative possible is the vaccine itself, Cervivac. And get this, it's India's very first homegrown HPV vaccine. Having a domestically produced vaccine is a total game changer. It brings the cost way down, it secures the supply chain, and it's a huge milestone for India's scientific self-reliance. Honestly, a program on this massive scale just wouldn't be possible without it.
All right, for our last section, let's zoom out a bit and talk about the long-term impact.
Why is this so much more than just another vaccination program?
The ripple effects here are huge. I mean, of course, the #1 goal is to save lives by preventing cancer, but it also empowers a whole generation of women with preventative care. It strengthens the entire public health system for whatever challenges come next. It showcases India's scientific and manufacturing power, and it moves the country a massive step closer to the global goal of eliminating cervical cancer altogether.
When you boil it all down, this whole initiative is a truly historic investment. It really represents a fundamental shift in thinking about public health, moving away from only treating diseases after they happen to proactively preventing them on a massive national scale.
And that really leaves us with one big final question to think about. The whole world is watching this unfold, so you have to wonder, is this the blueprint? You know, this combination of public will, homegrown science, and massive logistical power, is this the future for how nations everywhere are going to tackle preventable diseases?